Hi friends, welcome. My name's Jess, and in this video I'm going to talk you through 4 signs that I've seen that shows that someone really has low commitment towards our relationship. And so once we can see them, we can decide how we want to respond. So stay tuned and we'll talk about it. Hi folks, welcome. My name's Jess. I'm a psychotherapist. I am a coach and I come from a very challenging family. And I was thinking the other day about this idea of, I think one of the biggest problems we can have in families is where a family expects us to have high commitment towards them, but they actually show low commitment back to us. And it can cause a lot of problems. I think that actually it's okay to have either high or low commitment families, but as long as everybody's kind of on board, everybody knows what's going on and people are treated pretty much equally. But I think we get into a lot of problems, and especially this comes up in a scapegoat in a narcissistic family kind of situation, where one family member is expected to show a lot of commitment back to the family, but they don't get that commitment reciprocated. The person who is expected to do all these things, maybe spend a lot of time with the family, maybe make decisions that the family will approve of, live their lives in ways that the family wants them to. When that is not returned, when that commitment only goes one way, it can cause a lot of problems. And so in this video, I've actually got 4 ways that I think we can pick up on having a low commitment relationship when we're talking to people. And so these can apply to family situations. It also could apply to co-workers or friends. But I think it's really good for us to recognize when the person we're speaking to is actually communicating that they have limits, that they have boundaries, or that they have a lower commitment to the relationship than perhaps what they're asking us to give. When we can understand this, we can see if there is a power imbalance, if there's something going on, and then we can decide accordingly how we want to do things. And for me, the first sign that there is a limit to the relationship, when someone sets limits around what subjects we can talk about in the conversation. So if someone says, we can't talk about this, I don't want to talk about that, I'm not going to talk about the past, we're not going to talk about that argument or the thing that happened at so-and-so's wedding. When someone puts boundaries and limits on what we can or can't talk about in our relationship with them, immediately they're putting limits on it. It shows that it's not a wide open relationship where we can talk and we can be safe and we can really exchange views freely and understand each other and get to that deeper level of connecting. When someone says, no, I'm not going to talk about that, then it really puts us, it's a very, very, very clear signal of like, no, we can't go there. Our relationship is going to be bound. Now, I'm also going to say that actually this can happen both sides. It can happen when someone is trying to avoid having difficult conversations. And so this can happen with a parent who is uncomfortable with, say, talking about emotional situations, or if it were a narcissist who didn't want to be called out for certain behaviors, then they can say, nope, that conversation is off limits. We're not going to talk about it anymore. I am also going to say, though, I think that sometimes this is a way that non-narcissistic people try and manage a conversation with someone who's more difficult by saying, okay, I'm not going to talk about religion. I'm not going to talk about politics. We need to keep the conversation to a very neutral terms. This limiting the subject can be used in a non-narcissistic way to try and keep the conversation safe and appropriate and manageable. But what it does do, whichever side you're coming from, is it's a very clear signal that this is not an open relationship where anything goes, and that we are able to really exchange views and have a deeper connection. It shows that there are limits, and again, not necessarily that it's right or wrong, but if someone is putting limits on us in terms of what they're willing for us to share with them or what they want to talk about with us, then it's absolutely okay, and I would say maybe even essential, that we then think about from our side, well, if they're limiting what they're going to allow us to share with them, then we start to limit what we're comfortable sharing with them. What happens often, so often in narcissistic relationships, though, is that the narcissist wants to control what is talked about. Even if they don't want to talk about this thing, they want to pull a lot more other information out of us. And it's really kind of for them to pick and choose what they want, and they will choose the information that is going to serve them the best. But what we can do with a bit of knowledge and a bit of insight is that we can decide, okay, well, they're giving me limits to the conversation, so then it's okay for me. Then the narcissist isn't going to like it, but it's okay, and maybe it's essential for us to think about limiting what personal information we share with them. Another way a parent will show low commitment communication is when they only want to hear good things about us. They'll say, oh, I want to know how you're doing. And then we tell them, but actually they only want to hear the good stuff. They don't want to hear if we're not doing okay. They don't want to hear if we're struggling. They don't want to hear when things have been tough. They might not want to know if we've been ill or that we've got other problems going on in our lives. When we have a kind of like a fair weather parent in those situations where they just want to know about the good stuff, then we really know that their commitment isn't there for us when we need it, when things get tough. And this can become even more frustrating and obvious and unbalanced and difficult if we find that we're in a situation where our parent only wants to hear good news from us, but they're allowed to download and share and give us all the difficult things that are happening in their lives. And so what they're basically communicating to us in that level is that they want us to be this place where everything's fine with us, we're always good, they can dump all their problems on us. One of our functions in their life actually is that we kind of keep them afloat. And of course, there are lots of relationships where from time to time we are like a safe place for people who are having a tough time, when people need to lean on us a bit more and sometimes we need to lean on them a bit more. But that's the key point of this. It's a reciprocal. We know that if someone's having a harder time now, then that's okay, because we can be there and help a bit, because we know that if the tables turn or when the tables turn, they're going to be there to support us if we need. So a third way we can pick up in a conversation if a parent is low commitment is saying, oh yes, we're totally open, we want to talk about anything, but then as soon as the conversation gets difficult or goes the way that they don't want it to go, they back out, they go silent, they shut the conversation down. So I don't know about you, but this has happened to me so many times where it's like, yes, we should talk about stuff, Jess. We're that kind of family. We want to talk about the difficult things. And then the difficult things go on the table and suddenly there's a tumbleweed blowing through town and we just know that it's not going to happen. So depending on who we're dealing with, if it's a more narcissistic type of parent and we're having a conversation that doesn't go their way, they might try and twist things and change the facts, and they might try and persuade us that we've got something wrong and that we misunderstand something or that it didn't happen. Those are the classic gaslighting and manipulation or Darvo tactics. But another one I've noticed, if someone is a bit less narcissistic but still very uncomfortable in a difficult conversation, if we challenge them and say something like, can you clarify why you think that I'm being more sensitive when actually this was the situation, then they can do the classic, oh, never mind, oh, you didn't understand, oh, it doesn't really matter. When we ask someone to go deeper into the conversation to really explain their concerns or their perspective, they can back away when they realize that it's not going to further their cause and that they actually haven't got any kind of substance or thought or validity behind their position. And the last line I have of a kind of a low commitment type of relationship is, it's a bit of a theme of the ones before, but it's really that it's so unbalanced, and that there are different rules for that person than us. That they can complain, but we can't. That they can say that they're not okay, but we can't. That they can give their views on something, but ours are wrong. There's just this constant mismatch and imbalance of what they're allowed to bring to the conversation, what they're allowed to throw on the table, and what we can. And when we constantly have to monitor ourselves, censor ourselves, be really careful about the words or the subject or any opinions that we bring to the situation, or we know that if we bring it, we're kind of braced for the response, that's when I think we can really start thinking about whether this is a balanced and healthy and reasonably equally committed type of relationship, or whether we're dealing with someone who, again, is wanting us to give and to commit way more, whilst they kind of sit back and decide what level of engagement they're going to put into the conversation, into the communication, and into the relationship. Friends, as always, I love to hear your comments. Thank you so much for being here. I am just going to take a minute for anybody who's still with me to say thank you so much for being part of the club. I'm really seeing now how this kind of, the strength in having people with shared experiences, just the level of support it brings to us. And so if you're saying, hey Chess, when you speak about this, it's like you're speaking my language, it's like you're talking about my situation, please know that it is mutual. When I get comments from you and you're describing your situation, I'm like, yes, I absolutely could have been in your family or could have been in the room. I know exactly what you mean around those dynamics. Please know that it is a mutual thing. And I just really appreciate you all for being here. And I really appreciate the club for expanding and being what it is. It's a special place. And I'm very, very, very glad that you're all here with us. With me, with us. We're all in this together. Friends, thank you so much. Please take care. Have a lovely, lovely day. And I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.